They left Earth as fragile machines of metal and wire, never meant to return, carrying only instruments, silence, and a message etched in gold. Decades later, they are still out there, beyond the warmth of the sun, beyond the breath of the solar system, still whispering across the void. This is not just the story of planets and stars. It is the story of how we learn to see. Frost that melts at dawn, rings sculpted by moons, oceans hidden under ice, dunes that flow like rivers, and a single faint signal stretched across billions of kilometers. Every clue seemed like the answer. Every world promised a resolution. Yet the truth lay hidden until the very end. Listen closely, because what the Voyagers revealed was not simply what is out there, but how to look into the dark and find meaning in traces that might otherwise be lost forever. But the story does not begin at the edge of the solar system. It begins closer, with the first traces written in dust on a world that once tried to hold its breath. Mars rose in the frame not as a nearby world, but as a ledger of ages, its pages written in stone and dust. The planet carried a sky stretched thin, pale and rust-colored, where winds scoured grains into perpetual flight. Each gust whispered of a place where the atmosphere had thinned to little more than memory, where once there might have been weight, warmth, and rivers flowing freely. Now, only permafrost beneath the ochre surface held the trace of water, locked away, sealed by cold that reached deeper than any probe could fully grasp. The world's heart told the rest of the story. Deep inside, the Martian core had fallen silent, too weak to spin a magnetic cloak around its body. Without that shield, the solar wind pressed in unhindered, stripping air molecule by molecule, season by season, until skies that might have been blue turned pale and brittle. Mars became vulnerable not just to the sun's breath, but to time itself, its surface etched by storms and meteor scars that remained untouched by healing forces. Across this silent face, a single wound demanded attention. Vallis Marin tell whether it had known flowing rivers or stagnant basins. Instruments captured the traces, spectra of minerals that formed in the presence of water, and the imagination pressed forward toward rivers and lakes. Yet each reading was partial, each clue a fragment, like a sentence without its ending. The landscape told of absence as much as of presence. Craters softened at their edges where frost had crept. Ridges fractured where permafrost thawed and froze again. Dunes migrated in patient steps across plains where nothing rooted them. The planet preserved everything, refusing to erase even the smallest trace of change. It was an archive without a librarian, a record without a clear order. The observer could turn to one page and believe they had found the origin of loss, only to turn again and see another page contradict it. The stillness above the canyon was deceptive. To imagine silence in such a place was to overlook the subtle voices still alive. Thin winds howling against sharp cliffs. Dust devils carving circles across the floor. Grains clinking together like glass beads. These sounds never reached the human ear, but were captured in instruments and relayed across space as data points, signals transformed into whispers of what could not be directly touched. The illusion of being close to the truth grew stronger with each measurement, as though the canyon would soon surrender its meaning. Yet the trail kept bending, each answer dissolving into another question. Far from the canyon's edge, the planet offered smaller hints, streaks down crater walls where seasonal frost melted into thin rivulets. morning fogs that pooled in hollows only to vanish with the first light, minerals buried in rocks that had crystallized in water long gone. Each detail teased a narrative of seas and climates. Each promised that the answer was near, and each receded, leaving only the conviction that understanding lay just beyond reach. The longer one watched, the more Mars revealed itself as a paradox. Its silence seemed final, yet every grain of dust was a testimony. Its cold appeared absolute, yet frost suggested change even now. The canyon seemed the signature. A single scar could not explain the whole. To follow the trail of water meant descending deeper, into a labyrinth where fog and frost promised answers that never came. The labyrinth of night stretched across Mars like a shattered puzzle, its fractures running in directions that defied order, each canyon slicing into the next until the terrain resembled a broken chessboard scattered by some ancient hand. From orbit, the chasms appeared endless, their walls plunging into darkness that swallowed even reflected sunlight. Here was a place where the planet's crust had cracked and pulled apart, where the surface itself seemed to have lost coherence. To gaze upon it was to imagine a story of collapse, as if Mars had buckled under a weight too great for its brittle skin. Yet the labyrinth did not yield so easily. Its meaning remained as fractured as its cliffs. At dawn, fog gathered within those immense corridors, pale veils rising from the canyon floors as cold air trapped vapor in pockets too deep for the weak sun to clear at once. For a moment, the valleys appeared alive, breathing as mist thickened and then thinned, as though rivers of cloud had returned to replace rivers of water. But the illusion never lasted. As the light climbed, the fog dissolved into nothing, leaving the labyrinth hollow again, its silence restored. Each morning repeated the cycle, fog promising a secret, then vanishing before it could be named. Frost followed its own rhythm. At night, the air grew so cold that ice crystals formed upon rock faces and in shaded hollows, glittering faintly in the scattered starlight. By sunrise, the frost melted away, leaving no more than faint streaks along the cliffs, as if the planet itself were teasing the memory of flowing water. The cycle became another trace in the archive of Mars, evidence of processes that hinted at abundance but proved only the persistence of scarcity. Instruments that circled overhead reached deeper than the eye, measuring the chemical signatures embedded in stone. Spectra revealed minerals that could not have formed without liquid water, clays that remembered ancient rivers, sulfates that crystallized in briny lakes. Each detection seemed decisive, another step toward proving that Mars had once held seas and rain. But many, tectonic strain, volcanic pressure, the weight of collapse, all intertwined, none conclusive. To wander in imagination across those ridges was to feel the disorientation of scale. Valleys wide enough to swallow entire nations opened in every direction. Cliffs higher than Earth's tallest mountains cast shadows so deep that frost lingered long after the sun had risen. From above, the pattern resembled order. On the surface, it was chaos. The labyrinth was not a single scar but a network of them, each passage leading deeper into confusion. Morning frost became the most tempting clue because it was alive, present, immediate. It suggested that water had not vanished entirely, that it still moved, if only as vapor, if only as transient ice. The temptation was to read those delicate crystals as proof that the riddle was nearly solved, that Mars was preparing to reveal its past through its present breath. But the frost was only a gesture, a faint outline of a truth still withheld. The labyrinth of night held the gaze with its enormity, inviting certainty, yet denying it at every turn. Its fogs and frosts resembled answers, but they dissolved into ambiguity as quickly as they appeared. The minerals gleamed with promise, but they spoke in fragments. The broken chessboard of canyons remained a riddle etched in stone, drawing attention to itself as though it contained the key to the planet's history, only to fold the seeker back into silence. The scene closed as sunlight burned the last of the morning fog from the valleys, cliffs brightening in hues of red and gold. From a distance, it looked as though clarity had returned, the labyrinth revealed in full daylight. But daylight did not bring understanding. The canyons stretched on, fractured and unresolved, leaving only the impression of a clue almost within reach, a conclusion that seemed ready to form yet never quite arrived. From broken canyons, the path led onward to a crater once filled by a lake. There, the surface held pebbles rounded by streams, as though water had only just departed. Gale Crater spread across the Martian surface like an open amphitheater, its rim a circle of eroded mountains, its center dominated by the rising form of Mount Sharp. To an observer carried the imprint of liquid flow, the mark of time spent beneath moving water. To see them was to glimpse a different Mars, a planet where rivers had coursed and collected in this very basin, filling it with ripples of life that never came. The rover's tools drilled into the soil and stone, pulling dust into its instruments. In those samples, hematite appeared, an iron mineral that could only form in the presence of water. Its presence was not subtle. It spoke clearly of chemistry that required moisture, of rocks that had once been soaked and transformed. With every drilled sample, every spectral reading, the evidence grew. Gale Crater had been shaped by water, altered by it, filled by it. Yet the picture remained incomplete. The minerals told of the conditions, but not of their duration. Did the water linger long enough for stability, or had it come and gone in fleeting episodes? The answers lay buried deeper than the rover could reach. Mount Sharp itself loomed as a monument to time. Its layers stacked one upon another, each stratum a chapter in the story of climate. Sediments recorded the shifting of conditions, from wetter ages toward the dry desolation of today. The mountain slopes displayed cross-bedded sandstone, ripples frozen in stone, as if the waves of shallow water had been caught mid-motion and petrified for eternity. The rover traced these patterns, mapping a climate that once breathed more freely, where air was thicker, where lakes could remain stable, where clouds could gather with weight enough to fall as rain. And yet, even as these traces pointed toward a once living cycle, the present pressed its contradiction. The crater floor was a desert, swept by winds that moved dunes grain by grain. These dunes advanced like slow rivers, their crests shifting with each gust, their slopes avalanching in miniature cascades. Curiosity recorded them, watching shadows crawl across their rippled surfaces, measuring their pace over months. The dunes themselves seemed alive, but their movement belonged to a dry world, a place where sand flowed in place of water. The contrast deepened the mystery. Round's pebbles testified quite arrived. Gale Crater offered proof of what had been, but no certainty of why it was lost. As the sun lowered, shadows stretched across the dunes, their crests glowing gold against the red plain. The rover's cameras captured the movement of sand, ridges migrating as though rivers still flowed, only slower, only drier, only in grains. The scene closed on that illusion, dunes behaving as water once did, carrying the shape of flow while withholding its substance. It was a final gesture of near revelation, a reminder that Mars never denied its past, but never allowed it to be fully known, leaving only the tease of an answer beyond reach. But even a crater lake without water left questions unfinished. To the south stretched a basin brighter than all others, where air thickened and fog gathered like a breath still lingering. From the silence of orbit, Hellas Basin gleamed like a mirror of pale light, a vast depression etched into the southern face of Mars. Its outline stretched wider than entire countries on Earth, so immense that it appeared almost smooth when seen from afar. Yet as the camera descended, the clarity of distance broke into detail. Fractured plains, ridges collapsed inward, and dust veils drifting across its floor. What had seemed simple became layered, complex, heavy with contradictions. Hellas was a wound carved by ancient impact, a hollow so deep that the atmosphere within it thickened under its own weight. The pressure there rose higher than anywhere else on the planet, air that remained thin by earthly measure, but dense enough to change what could happen at the surface. In this basin, fog formed more easily, spilling across hollows in muted waves. Sometimes it lingered in the morning shadows, filling valleys with ghost-like rivers of vapor before burning away. From a distance, it resembled the breath of a living world, but the illusion broke as quickly as it formed. The fog was not life returning. It was only weather conjured by cold and depth. The ground beneath this breath told a harsher truth. The soil fractured into polygons that echoed the patterns of Earth's Arctic tundra, where frozen water swells and contracts with the seasons. These geometric scars revealed cold storage, not flowing reservoirs. The thicker air slowed erosion but did not restore rivers. The basin's brightness from orbit was only a trick of elevation, a reflection that drew the eye to a place that could not fulfill its promise. The weather itself performed as if in disguise. Dust devils twisted across the basin floor, curling in delicate spirals, as though mimicking waterspouts over vanished seas. Clouds sometimes traced the rim, casting shadows that hinted at storms never strong enough to fall as rain. In every gesture, Hellas imitated vitality while offering only symptoms. Its air was denser, its cold more biting, its scars deeper. But the source that might explain them all remained absent. The basin closed like a chapter that promised revelation, yet offered only misdirection. What seemed at first to be a reservoir of memory became another mask, another fragment of Mars's greater puzzle. The camera lifted away, leaving the basin gleaming again from above, a bright mirror concealing its emptiness. Northward, the view turned toward older landscapes where channels branched into deltas, where riverbeds fanned into plains. There, in ancient sediments and layered deposits, the planet's history lay written more clearly. The path of discovery bent away from Hellas, carrying the search toward those scattered signatures of water that had once carved their shape into the Martian crust. The basin of winter receded behind, its brightness still visible, its silence unchanged, leaving the story unresolved, yet pulling the observer closer to places where firmer traces might still be found. Yet brightness alone was not a revelation. To find firmer traces, one had to turn north, to the fossil of a river delta, where a patient machine circled, drilled, and waited. Jezero Crater opened into view as a relic of convergence, a place where an ancient river had once spilled into a basin, spreading sediments into the shape of a fan. Its contours still held the geometry of water, the unmistakable curve of a delta frozen in stone. From orbit, it looked like certainty, proof that rivers had not only existed on Mars, but had endured long enough to leave behind the architecture of their flow. Yet certainty dissolved upon approach, replaced by obstacles, by sands too soft for wheels, and ridges too treacherous. Listened with patient intensity. A seismograph tuned itself to vibrations beneath the surface, registering quakes too small for human sense. Each tremor became a whisper of the planet's interior, a rhythm that suggested Mars was not fully silent, but still shifting, still alive in its own restrained way. The rover stood as both geologist and listener, waiting through long hours for signals that spoke of what lay hidden beneath the crust. Above, the sky performed its own enigmas. Phobos, the small and jagged moon, crossed the face of the sun, casting a brief shadow that skittered across the crater floor. Cameras captured the eclipse with the stillness of ritual, a reminder that Mars too carried its celestial alignments, its moments of rhythm and eclipse, its sky alive with motion despite the planet's frozen heart. Then came Ascent. Ingenuity, a machine lighter than any bird, rose on carbon fiber wings, spinning blades against the tenuous air. It lifted into a sky that should not have held it, proving that even the thinnest atmosphere could yield to persistence. From above, the drone saw patterns invisible from the ground, channels carved into the delta, boulder fields scattered in arcs, the outlines of flood events that once surged with unstoppable force. Each flight widened the frame, each image expanded the archive. Yet even these vantage points did not reveal the whole. The delta remained guarded, keeping its oldest truths in layers unreachable by drill or camera. Among the rover's tools lay one experiment that reached forward rather than backward. Moxie, a small box fitted with careful machinery, drew in the Martian air and split its molecules, breathing out oxygen. The gesture was quiet, a few grams produced at a time, but its significance outstripped its size. It was a rehearsal for survival, a whisper of future breath, a reminder that the story of Mars was not only about what had been lost, but about what might still be gained. In that faint exhalation of oxygen, the crater seemed to hold its breath, as if acknowledging the intrusion of human possibility into its silence. Still, the delta resisted surrender. Its stones testified to water's presence. Its cliffs displayed the marks of deposition. Its channels spread in graceful fans that carried the shape of vanished rivers. Yet the central finality. The camera lingered on the fan-shaped expanse as twilight deepened, hinting once again that the answer lay close, just beneath the surface, only to defer it for another day. Still, the delta held its silence. The search leapt outward to a world of rings so vast and thin that they seemed eternal, yet fragile enough to vanish in time. Saturn emerged from the blackness not as a sphere crowned with decoration, but as a vast machine of process. Its rings, so delicate when glimpsed from Earth, expanded into immense structures of dust, ice, and fractured stone. Bands encircling the planet with such precision that they seemed almost deliberate. Yet they were no ornaments. They were engines of interaction, sculpted by gravity and collision, a system in constant motion. To see them up close was to witness not a still picture, but an unfolding performance. Shepherd moons traced their paths along the edges of the rings, small bodies exerting outsized influence. Each moon tugged and pulled, corralling particles into sharp lines, preventing spread and scatter. Where they passed, gaps opened, lanes cleared, and waves rippled outward, frozen for an instant and then redrawn. Their presence gave structure to chaos, as though unseen hands were shaping the ring edges into razor-thin borders that defied their scale. In some places, those borders rose into walls kilometers high, sculpted ridges of ice grains stacked by resonance. To orbit near them was to glimpse architecture alive, towers and cliffs built from motion alone. Dusty veils lay between brighter bands, translucent arcs where light diffused into faint halos. The rings glittered under sunlight, each particle turning for a moment before vanishing into the immensity of its orbit. Shadows stretched across them, cutting swaths of darkness into the brilliance, making the whole appear like a score of alternating light and silence. Every gap, every bright streak, every ripple told of interactions measured not in minutes, but in eons. The sheer mass of the rings astonished. Spread across thousands of kilometers, their material was no greater than that of a single moon, dispersed into countless fragments. They were immense yet insubstantial, grandeur made from thinness. To an eye seeking permanence, they suggested invisible in the frame. Resonances carved patterns of order into disorder, sculpting arcs that aligned perfectly with distant orbital rhythms. Each detail seemed to suggest a key, a final explanation. Yet the closer one looked, the more the riddle deepened. Every measurement that hinted at youth contradicted another that suggested age. Every model of formation explained one part while leaving another unsolved. The rings became not just an object of study, but a mirror of uncertainty itself. From afar, they appeared eternal, icons of the planet that bore them. Up close, they revealed their fragility, a structure that could vanish in cosmic time no longer than a blink. To imagine Saturn without them was almost impossible, yet the planet had existed before their making and would endure after their loss. Their presence was a temporary splendor stretched across enormity, a reminder that even grandeur was not permanent. As the camera lingered, Saturn's shadow swept across the rings, turning brilliance into darkness. The sight suggested revelation, as if the contrast would finally expose their truth. But the shadow passed, the light returned, and the riddle remained whole. The rings endured as a spectacle without resolution, their beauty inseparable from their ambiguity. Their process continued, moons shepherding, particles colliding, arcs reshaping, while the question of origin stayed open by design, a puzzle meant to remain unanswered. But rings were only process, not cause. To glimpse life within, silence meant traveling to a smaller moon, where cracks in the ice exhaled oceans into space. Enceladus, small and pale, revolved in the dark like a shard of fractured ice. Against the scale of Saturn, it seemed insignificant, a frozen bead among many. Yet upon closer approach, its surface betrayed a secret. At the South Pole, parallel fissures stretched for hundreds of kilometers, glowing faintly in the reflected light. These were the tiger stripes, fractures that breathed, exhaling vapor and ice into the void. Geysers erupted from their depths, jets so fine they glittered like powdered starlight before falling back as snow. Each plume traced an arc away from the moon, seeding Saturn's faint E-ring with particles. The ring itself became a record of Enceladus through fissures, venting into space. A world so small should have been inert, yet tides gave it energy enough to remain alive. To an observer, this seemed the answer at last. The riddle undone, the secret exposed. But the truth slipped away as quickly as the spray itself, scattering into space before it could be fully grasped. For if there was an ocean, how deep did it run? Did it coat only the South Pole, or wrap the moon entire? Was it stable for millions of years, or was it fragile, destined to vanish in cosmic moments? Each measurement offered possibilities but withheld resolution. The plumes revealed their chemistry, but not the conditions of the sea itself. Salts and organics teased the imagination, yet none proved what they implied. The invitation was strong, but the answer remained deferred. Fallout blanketed the surface, layering the moon in its own snow. Bright as polished marble, Enceladus reflected sunlight more strongly than nearly any other body, its whiteness refreshed continuously by its own breath. This brightness became another trace, another motif of presence and absence. It revealed that the moon was active, but obscured what it truly held. The surface became too clean, too young, its history erased by constant renewal. The very activity that promised knowledge also destroyed its record, leaving only the present moment to study. Beneath the ice, seismic flexing continued. Gravity pulled and released, tides kneaded the crust, and the fissures opened and closed in rhythm. The moon moved as though breathing in time with its planet, each exhalation a whisper of hidden depths. To follow those whispers was to feel perpetually close to revelation. Each plume resembled a message rising to the surface, declaring that the ocean was real, that its secrets lay within reach. Yet the closer the instruments drew, the more partial the answers became. Enceladus offered evidence and withheld proof. It displayed activity impossible to ignore, but concealed the full nature of its depths. It scattered its traces into orbit, sowing rings that testified to its vitality, but in doing so obscured the whole picture. The ocean under ice became less a certainty than a reflection, visible only in fragments and fallout. As the camera pulled back, of muted amber, the sunlight that reached through was changed, filtered into tones of old gold, giving every scene a subdued glow as if the entire moon existed beneath a perpetual dusk. The weight of that atmosphere altered everything. It pressed down with a presence absent elsewhere in Saturn's realm, creating a stage where chemistry and weather performed in strange and familiar ways at once. Lakes spread across its surface, not of water, but of liquid methane and ethane, collected in basins that mirrored Earth's seas in shape, if not in composition. Their shores traced smooth arcs. Their surfaces lay still beneath the heavy sky, reflecting faint light with a metallic sheen. Rivers carved their way into them, channels etched in dark lines across the land, frozen testimony to a cycle of rainfall, flow, and pooling that mirrored water's rhythm, yet ran colder, slower, stranger. To witness them was to see a reflection of the familiar in an alien form, a hydrological system alive in hydrocarbons. Beyond the lakes stretched dunes, vast and unbroken, running in dark, parallel chords across equatorial plains. They moved with patience, sculpted by winds that shifted beneath Titan's thick air. From orbit, they resembled the deserts of Earth, but up close they were made of organic grains, complex molecules ground into sand by processes unseen. Their movement carried the slow persistence of time, crossing the landscape in patterns that suggested permanence, yet promised change. In some regions, the land bore brighter scars, patches thought to be cryovolcano fields where ices had erupted, staining the surface before fading back into obscurity. These bright flows hinted at activity beneath the crust, a warmth that refused complete silence. They suggested that Titan was not only shaped by weather above, but also stirred from within, as though the moon balanced two processes, surface cycles of methane rain and deeper convulsions of frozen chemistry. Each trace offered another near answer, another fragment that seemed to clarify until examined more closely. The Huygens probe brought the vision to the ground. Through its descent, the worlds, the Titan above, opaque and golden, and the Titan below, where rivers carved, dunes marched, and lakes waited. It was an invisible wall that preserved the surface as a different realm beneath the shroud. Every element fit together, as though the answer was ready to be named. Lakes confirmed cycles, dunes recorded winds, cryovolcanoes suggested hidden warmth, cobbles testified to fluids, atmosphere created layers. The puzzle looked complete, yet when all pieces were placed side by side, they left a gap that refused to close. Each clue supported the others, but none revealed the full truth of Titan's nature. The moon held its riddle intact, offering intimacy through details while withholding the conclusion. As light dimmed across the golden haze, Titan seemed to hover between resolution and mystery. Its methane weather mirrored waters, its landscapes mimicked Earth's, its chemistry promised possibility. The illusion grew strong. The puzzle seemed nearly solved. But once again, the answer slid beyond reach. Another piece that almost fit, leaving only the sense of closeness without closure. And still farther, silence gave way to fire, a moon erupted with such force that mountains rose higher than Everest, and lava overturned itself like the beat of a restless heart. Io came into view not as a quiet moon, but as a restless world caught in the act of unending eruption. Its surface shimmered with sulfur plains stained in yellows, reds, and blacks, as if painted anew each day by fire rising from beneath. No crater field remained untouched for long. No plain kept its form. This was a landscape that remade itself constantly, a stage where geology unfolded at a pace more like weather than stone. At its heart, volcanoes pulsed with relentless force. Pele cast a giant plume into space, a ring of vapor and ash arcing across the sky until it fell back upon the surface in a vast circle wider than continents on Earth. Loki, a lava lake larger than entire seas, churned and overturned, its surface solidifying only to break again in cycles that resembled a slow heartbeat. To watch these features was to see energy laid bare, a rhythm measured in fire rather than time. Mountains thrust upward where the crust buckled. Tidal forces from Jupiter and its fellow moons kneaded Io's interior, pulling it apart and pressing it back with each orbit, creating friction enough to liquefy rock into seas of magma. The explanation was elegant. Tides fed heat. Heat drove volcanoes. Volcanoes reshaped the moon. Surely this was the answer, the rule that could explain the riddles of other worlds. But the key proved incomplete. Heat explained Io, but it could not unravel the silence of Mars, the plumes of Enceladus, the methane seas of Titan, the icy plains of Pluto. It was one truth among many, a fragment in a larger design. Io's brilliance lay not in solving the riddle, but in refining it, in showing that energy could sculpt worlds with the urgency of life, yet that energy alone did not explain all. The moon burned at its perpetual noon, eruptions visible against the void, shadows cast by plumes towering into space. Each eruption seemed final, decisive, as though it declared the central principle outright. But each also faded, ash falling back to the surface, flows cooling into new planes, the heartbeat slowing until the next overturn began again. Nothing here was permanent except the cycle. As the camera withdrew, Io's glowing scars spread across its face, each plume a signal, each mountain a monument. The temptation to call the riddle solved lingered like heat against the eye. Yet the narration pressed onward, reminding that Io's key was only part of a larger ring, a fragment of truth bound to others still hidden. The illusion of finality flickered in volcanic light, then dimmed, leaving only the sense of closeness once more denied. Yet fire was not the only sculptor. At the far edge, cold itself moved like heat, building mountains of ice and carving plains into a bright heart that refused to stay still. Pluto drifted into the frame, distant and subdued, its surface marked by a gleaming shape that caught the eye from the first moment. The bright expanse known as Sputnik Planitia stretched like a pale heart across the dwarf planet's face. From orbit it looked serene, a frozen plain of nitrogen ice glowing against mutual embrace. Its surface bore deep scars, great chasms that cut across its crust as though the moon had been torn apart and stitched back together. Near its poles spread a vast stain, a dark region nicknamed Mordor, where frozen tholins coated the land in hues of red and black. The pairing of worlds complicated every impression, for each bore traces of activity that defied their size and distance. Together, they refused to behave as inert relics. Together, they suggested that even the outermost frontier was restless. Pluto's plains shifted under forces that seemed impossible at such temperatures. Charon's canyons stretched across hemispheres. The polar stain deepened in mystery. Cold it seemed, sculpted as surely as heat. The rules of geology proved broader than fire and molten rock. Ice and pressure could carve landscapes of equal grandeur, building mountains, smoothing basins, and rewriting surfaces in silence. For a moment, the illusion of unity took shape. Fire had reshaped Io. Frost had remade Pluto, both driven by energy applied in different forms. Perhaps here was the bridge, the rule that tied them together. Heat and cold as equal sculptors, opposites writing the same language across worlds. Yet the promise retreated as quickly as it formed. Cold did not explain Mars's lost rivers, nor Saturn's rings, nor the breath of Enceladus. The rule slipped from reach, leaving the riddle intact. The heart of Pluto continued to gleam, its outline clear even from the edge of the solar system. It pulsed with movement hidden beneath stillness, a slow heartbeat measured in convective cycles rather than seconds. To study it was to feel close to the core of the puzzle, close to a unifying law that might make sense of all. But as with the canyons of Mars, the plumes of Enceladus, and the fires of Io, the truth refused to settle. The heart revealed motion in cold, power in silence, vitality in ice, yet it also concealed the greater answer. As the camera pulled back, the bright heart and the scarred companion remained bound together, orbiting in their eternal dance. They stood as emblems of contradiction, frozen worlds alive with motion. With it, instruments still tuned to measure, still eager to record. The probe became a point of persistence, a reminder that exploration did not end at a single destination. Its voice came not in sound, but in bit streams, the language of telemetry traveling across the gulf. Each packet of data was a pulse, a rhythm tapped against the silence, proving that the craft endured. Numbers scrolled into graphs, turning faint signals into knowledge. In those signals lived the health of the instruments, the speed of its travel, the strength of its fading power. To attend to those transmissions was to listen not to a machine, but to a character whose breath was steady, whose pulse slowed but did not cease. Beyond Pluto, the spacecraft aimed at occultations, alignments where distant stars or faint bodies passed behind known objects. By measuring the light that dimmed and brightened, New Horizons traced atmospheres and edges invisible to the naked eye. Even as it left one world behind, it created new silhouettes, new outlines of knowledge drawn in shadow and light. It turned its gaze to stars as well, using parallax to measure their subtle shifts against one another. The perspective gained from its distance offered a baseline longer than Earth itself could provide, giving astronomy a new depth of vision. From that vantage, constellations warped ever so slightly, stars moving into positions that betrayed their distances. The probe extended not only human reach but human sight, carrying vision farther than it had ever stretched. All the while, its power diminished. The radioisotope generator that fed its systems grew weaker with each passing year, its warmth fading as the isotopes decayed. Instruments shut down one by one to preserve the essentials, each silenced device marking the craft's slow aging. What began as a full chorus of sensors narrowed to a smaller ensemble. Yet the mission endured, adapting to each loss, continuing forward even as its strength diminished. The spacecraft became a metronome for distance. Its progress was measured not in landscapes past, but in the rhythm of time it took for its signals to return home. Hours stretched into longer spans. The echo of each command required patience. The farther it traveled, the slower its conversation with Earth became, until each exchange resembled a pause in which silence surrounded it. But silence was not absence. It was the medium through which its signals traveled. The probe's heartbeat was faint, but it remained. Its journey became less about the destinations it passed, and more about the fact that it continued to move, that it continued to speak. As the scene closed, New Horizons receded into blackness, a small shape vanishing against the void. Telemetry still pulsed, though weaker, a rhythm that marked both distance and time. The spacecraft endured as a witness, a metronome of exploration, carrying the story forward even as its own strength waned. In its silence lay the measure of the journey, steady, fading, yet unbroken. Still, the story of motion did not begin with New Horizons. Before it came the pioneers, their signals fading into silence that became a trace of its own. Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 were the first to set the pattern, small craft launched with ambitions larger than their frames, sent outward toward the giant planets and beyond. They traced arcs past Jupiter and Saturn, their instruments tuned to record magnetic fields, charged particles, the textures of space itself. In their time, they were trailblazers, pathfinders that cleared the way for every mission that followed. Each encounter was brief, a glance at a world too vast to be held in a single pass. Yet each left behind images and data that altered understanding. They revealed turbulence in Jupiter's magnetosphere, the spread of Saturn's rings, the play of moons around their giants. Their dances with the planets were moments of intensity, approaches at immense speed, cameras flashing as gravity bent their paths. Then the encounters passed, and the spacecraft did not return. Their trajectories carried them outward, deeper into the dark, leaving behind the heat of the inner system. What followed was not spectacle, but persistence. Years of signals, each weaker than the last, stretching across the widening gulf. The voices of the pioneers became faint weather in the ether. At first, their transmissions came strong, steady, filling receivers with clean tones. Then distance grew, and the signals wavered. Bursts arrived through static. Pulses faded into noise, each one thinner than the last. It was like listening to a storm receding, its thunder vanishing into the same silence, its journey unfinished but unbroken. Together, the two became figures not of arrival, but of departure, emblems of endurance in a realm where nothing could be sustained forever. Their silence did not erase them. It became part of their legacy, as much a record as the data they had sent while alive. To reflect upon them was to understand that absence itself carried meaning. A vanished signal testified to distance, to decay, to the limits of power and reach. Silence, too, was a trace, an entry in the archive no less significant than images of clouds or spectra of fields. The pioneers had revealed not only the planets, but also the truth that exploration extended beyond what could be recorded, into realms where persistence alone became the message. The motif deepened here. Mars had left frost as trace, Enceladus its plumes, Titan its golden haze, Pluto its bright heart. The pioneers left silence. Their absence became a presence, the proof that a line had been drawn outward into the dark, a line that continued even after the voice had fallen still. As the frame widened, neither spacecraft was visible, lost in distance. Only the echo of their journeys remained, told in bursts and fades, remembered as whispers of weather across the stars. Their silence spoke of endurance, of the limits of reach, of the truth that not all traces are made of stone or light. Some are made of the absence that follows, the quiet that remains after the last word has been said. And then, the farther one pressed on, slipping beyond the sun's breath. Plasma waves sang its passage, proving that edges are gradients, not walls. Voyager 1 pressed onward until the warmth of the sun thinned into near nothing, until its breath no longer reached. The craft entered a realm where solar wind no longer ruled, where particles from distant stars pressed back, shaping a boundary that was not a line, but a zone. It slipped into interstellar space, not with a sudden crossing, but with a transition measured in waves. Plasma around the probe began to vibrate, singing in tone signals. The crossing was not dramatic, but deliberate, an unfolding rather than a leap. The truth it revealed was subtle. Borders in space are never sharp. They are rivers mixing, boundaries that blur. As it moved deeper, its strength waned. The radioisotope core that fed it gave less with each passing season. Power had to be rationed. Instruments shut down one after another, each silencing like the dimming of a lantern in a long corridor. No numerals counted the years. The fading was measured instead in absences. The camera already dark, the spectrometers muted, the heaters stilled. Each loss marked time not in numbers, but in the hush of things no longer possible. The probe's endurance became its own story. Every active instrument carried double weight. Every continued transmission became not just data, but defiance. The craft's timeline was a sequence of decisions, what to keep alive, what to let go, until only the essentials remained. Its power diminished like the lengthening shadows of late day, steady and irreversible, yet never sudden. The signals it sent back grew fainter, weaker, stretched thin across the immensity. Yet they still arrived, captured by antennas on Earth that strained to listen. Each was a reminder that the probe remained present, still crossing, still bearing witness. The transmission itself became a heartbeat, faint but resolute, continuing long after expectation. Voyager 1 receded into the dark, carrying silence at its edges and song in its instruments. It had slipped beyond the sun's reach, yet its presence lingered, not as a figure to be seen, but as a voice carried across vastness. It was both relic and instrument, proof that the edge of the solar system was not an ending, but a gradient of forces blending. The mission aged in its dimming, but even in loss it measured, it revealed, it endured. The scene closed with the sense of seasons passing, each marked not by calendar or count, but by the quieting of power, the narrowing of its senses, the deepening of distance. Voyager remained, farther than any had gone, still writing trace hidden at its edges. The craft bore the same golden record, the same engraved idea launched with it, that leaving is also a form of communication, that motion itself is a message. In its persistence lay meaning, in its journey lay testimony. It carried forward the principle that exploration was not only about arrival, but about the act of continuing. Each kilometer gained, each signal returned, was another line added to a sentence, still being written across space. Voyager 2 traveled outward, measuring not by conquest, but by departure. It turned absence into information, recording the thinning of the solar wind, the weakening of magnetic fields, the silence of dust in places where it had once been thick. To leave was to measure. To measure was to describe. Its progress became a steady calibration of distance, a record of what it meant to cross from one domain into another. Ahead of it, the long arc pointed toward a red dwarf, a faint star it would approach only after human lifetimes had passed. The path was sketched not as an arrival, but as a line of patience, a trajectory that gave shape to time itself. It would take tens of thousands of years before the star grew near, its presence only a faint promise, a destination that existed more as concept than reality. The journey itself became the destination, the measure of endurance across the deep. Even as its power dimmed, the spacecraft endured as a messenger, instruments silenced one by one, Yet the essential signal remained, a faint voice carried back to Earth across a widening gulf. Each bitstream was a pulse in the dark, proving that it still moved, that it still bore witness. Its legacy grew not from what it would reach, but from the line it continued to draw. Voyager 2's path was a quiet arc, a curve through interstellar dark that required no completion to hold meaning. It carried forward the same golden idea that had guided its sibling, that distance itself is discovery, that leaving is not absence, but presence extended outward. The spacecraft moved on without audience, yet its persistence transformed the void into record. As the frame pulled back, the trajectory stretched across silence. The line aimed toward a star unseen to the eye, its arrival beyond the horizon, faint in radiance but closest in reach, circling at the edge of the system's embrace. Together they formed a triad, the nearest fires beyond the sun, a cluster that carried both familiarity and strangeness. Around them, worlds had been glimpsed in fragments, planets whose orbits hinted at possibilities both generous and cruel. Some appeared to lie in ranges where liquid water might persist, where atmospheres could gather, where climates might balance between extremes. Yet the same proximity to light that suggested life also threatened destruction. Flares erupted from Proxima with sudden violence, storms of radiation that could strip air from fragile worlds, leaving them bare beneath their star. The system became a paradox, offering both potential havens and certain hazards, a reminder that closeness to a fire could warm or consume. Not far beyond, Wolf 1061 revealed its own triad of companions, another family bound in motion. Its stars traced orbits around one another, their pull balanced in delicate rhythms that endured across ages. To look upon them was to see a miniature of greater systems, a repetition of pattern on a smaller scale. The clustering of names, Alpha Centauri, Proxima, Wolf, became a litany, stepping stones recited as if they were destinations ready to be reached. But each name was only a marker, a point on a map that human passage had not yet crossed. The distances mocked their closeness. By cosmic measure, these stars were near, only light years away, yet for human craft they remained impossibly far. Voyager's patient arc, stretched toward a faint red dwarf, revealed the scale of waiting such journeys demanded. Alpha Centauri might glow within the reach of telescopes. Proxima might flare in instruments, but the gap between knowledge and presence was vast. The stepping stones lay before us, visible but untouchable. Each name carried with it a different illusion of finality. Alpha Centauri seemed the natural goal, the familiar twin of the sun. Proxima tempted with its smallness and its promise of planets, yet threatened with its storms. Wolf 1061 offered the elegance of a triple system, balanced and intricate. Together they suggested a path outward, a progression of fires leading deeper into the galaxy. Alpha Centauri shone with familiarity. Proxima flickered with threat. Wolf 1061 balanced in its trio. The names stacked in the narration like stones across a river, but the crossing was not yet made. The stepping path remained incomplete, another illusion of closeness that held the answer just beyond the reach of hand or machine. Yet proximity was only one illusion. Brightness, youth, multiplicity. Each looked decisive, each dissolved into another false answer. The map grew crowded, the riddle deepened. Sirius rose into the frame like a jewel too bright for its setting, a beacon that outshone every other star in the local sky. Its brilliance seemed to offer certainty. The brightest star must hold the greatest meaning, the clearest answer. Yet brightness alone concealed as much as it revealed. Sirius owed its light to nearness and size, to a companion hidden in its glare, a white dwarf circling in quiet gravity. It dazzled, but dazzle was not truth. The promise of explanation dissolved in radiance, leaving only the reminder that brilliance could mislead. Elsewhere, a red dwarf still young enough to keep its lithium intact flickered in modest fire. Stars like this burned slowly, patiently, conserving their fuel over spans that would outlast entire galactic eras. Its retention of lithium marked its youth, a sign of beginnings rather than endurance. To see it was to imagine futures unmeasured in human terms, a flame that would burn long after brighter neighbors had gone dark. Youth seemed like another key, a measure of what might still unfold, yet it explained nothing beyond itself. It was another fragment, another almost answer. Castor unfolded as complexity itself, a system of 6 stars bound together in intricate gravitational dance. Pairs orbited pairs, which in turn orbited a wider pair, each movement balanced, each tug countered by another. From a distance, the system appeared singular, but up close it revealed multiplicity, a sextet hidden behind the guise of one. Its choreography tempted the imagination to see unity, as though the arrangement of many into one was itself the clue to the riddle of nearby space. But multiplicity, like brightness or youth, proved insufficient. It was an adornment, not a solution. Puzzle solved, to name the principle that governed all traces left by worlds and stars. Yet each fell short, leaving the sense of circling closer without arriving. The narration lingered on this crowding of near stars, this thickening of the local map. In their variety lay the weight of possibility, the seduction of partial truths. But variety itself was not an answer. It was a mirror of complexity, a reflection of how many ways the universe could refuse simplicity. As the frame widened, Sirius continued to dazzle. The red dwarf continued to flicker. Castor continued its sextet of gravities. Together, they created a constellation of illusions, a field of clues that seemed decisive yet remained incomplete. Closeness, brightness, youth, multiplicity, all suggested resolution. None provided it. The search pressed onward, carrying the sense that the answer hovered just beyond sight, deferred again into distance. To see the truth required a step back, to recognize that even our own neighborhood is weather, shaped by dust, fields, and the remnants of ancient fire. The sun itself was no fixed point in silence, but a traveler moving through a hollowed cavity in the galaxy. This cavity, vast and unseen to the naked eye, stretched for hundreds of light years and was called the local bubble. It was not empty, but carved by ancient fire, supernovae that had exploded long before the first humans looked upward, their shock waves clearing space of gas, pushing aside clouds, and leaving behind a region thinned and sculpted. The sun now swam through this expanse, drifting with its planets in tow, carried along a current formed by violence millions of years old. Dust threaded through the cavity in filaments, faint enough to hide, but dense enough to scatter light. These threads altered how the stars appeared, dimming some, reddening others, shaping the very maps drawn from Earth. Clouds lingered at the edges, dense regions where new stars might yet be born, while magnetic fields wound their way through the bubble, twisting particles, guiding cosmic rays, setting the terms of what could move and what must bend. Even target. The local bubble framed the sun's journey, shaping sight, shaping motion, shaping what could be known. To chart it was not to list coordinates, but to describe conditions, to note the interplay of dust and plasma, of pressure and field, of past violence and present drift. Here the story began to turn, preparing its final arc. The narrative was no longer a catalog of bodies, Mars with its canyons, Enceladus with its plumes, Pluto with its bright heart, Sirius with its blaze. It became instead a catalog of methods, of ways to know. Frost recorded water lost, plumes recorded seas beneath ice. Light shifts recorded stars in their motions. Silence recorded the aging of machines. Each trace was not merely evidence of a place, but evidence of how a place could be revealed. The bubble itself was proof. It existed not as something to be seen directly, but as something inferred, its boundaries drawn through the dimming of starlight, its structure mapped by the echoes of explosions long past, its fields measured in the way cosmic rays bent through detectors. The neighborhood was learned through traces, not through touch. Even home was not self-evident, but revealed only by the ways of measuring it. The turn sharpened. This was not a story of destinations, not a path across a list of worlds. It was a story of knowing, of the tools that shaped sight, of the traces that guided imagination. The local bubble was not the final place, but the final lesson. That even here, where the sun drifted, the medium itself dictated what could be perceived, and the instruments that captured its nature defined what was real to us. As the camera widened, the sun and its planets floated inside their hollow, the cavity around them lit not by their own fire, but by the memory of ancient detonations. Dust and fields swirled like invisible weather, shaping the future course. The story stood ready to close, not with another location, but with recognition. Every place had been a clue, and every clue had been a way of seeing. The riddle of the journey was not solved by arrival, but by the realization that the journey itself was the act of knowing. And here the threads converged. Frost, plume, ring, dune, nitrogen, plasma. All were traces caught. Measure and remember. The truth withheld across the journey proved both simple and vast. The Voyagers and every craft that preceded or followed did not merely extend our reach, they reshaped our sight. They taught us how to look, how to convert silence into signal, how to interpret faint shifts of light as proof of air, frost, ocean, or stone. The story of exploration was never only about distance or arrival. It was about the invention of ways to perceive what would otherwise remain unseen. Every supposed answer along the way, the canyon that promised catastrophe, the frost that hinted at rivers, the rings that seemed eternal, the geysers that suggested oceans, the dunes that imitated water, the heart that moved in ice, the brightness of Sirius, the closeness of Alpha Centauri, had been a near solution deferred. Each temptation prepared the final recognition. The key was not in any single world, but in the act of revealing itself. Knowledge was born from instruments, from persistence, from the decision to look again even when the answer seemed already in hand. The spacecraft became archivists of the unseen, pioneers fading into silence, new horizons sprinting onward, Voyagers still whispering against the void. All carried within them the same principle. They turned absence into presence, distance into record, silence into trace. Their endurance mattered not only for what they discovered, but for the way they proved that even the faintest signals could be turned into meaning. As the narrative closed, the camera found a single small craft receding into the dark, no larger than a spark against the field of stars. It carried no grandeur in its image, only persistence in its motion. The golden record still rode its side, a gesture of memory and intent. But its true legacy was simpler. It was movement itself, the continuation of a line drawn outward with no end in sight. The last line returned to the motif that had guided the journey from the beginning. A trace, frost etched into stone, light etched into film, signal etched into silence. The craft itself was the final trace, crossing darkness, marking that humanity had once reached this far and chosen not to stop. And so, at the edge of everything, the last image